Viktor Frankl finished the manuscript that would become man's search for meaning in 1945, just months after his liberation from the concentration camps. He published it in 1946. The book was initially dismissed by some as too narrowly focused on the extreme and unrepeatable experience of the Holocaust. What could the existential lessons of Auschwitz offer to people living in peacetime comfort? The answer, it turned out, was almost everything. Frankl argued in that first book, and in every book that followed, that the existential vacuum, the experience of inner emptiness, of meaninglessness, of the gnawing sense that life lacks genuine purpose, was not a post-war phenomenon. It was not a consequence of destruction. It was, paradoxically, more likely to emerge in conditions of comfort than of crisis. He predicted that as material prosperity rose in the Western world, rates of depression, addiction, aggression, and what he called the mass neurotic triad would rise with it. The mass neurotic triad, in Frankl's formulation, consisted of depression, aggression, and addiction. 3 different responses to the same underlying condition. The depressed person turns the vacuum inward. The aggressive person turns it outward. The addicted person attempts to fill it with sensation. Different presentations, same diagnosis. Look at the mental health data from any prosperous country over the past 3 decades. Depression among teenagers, a demographic whose material conditions have never been better by historical standards, has climbed dramatically. Rates of reported loneliness have risen in parallel with the rise of social connection technology. Addiction to substances and to behavioral stimuli has expanded. The opioid crisis, which killed hundreds of thousands of people in the wealthiest nation in history, followed a curve that Frankl's framework predicts almost exactly. The irony Frankl identified, and this is the part that makes comfortable people uncomfortable, is that wealth, technological convenience, and the elimination of many forms of hardship do not themselves produce meaning. They produce the conditions in which the question of meaning can no longer be avoided. When survival absorbs most of your energy, the question of what you are surviving for is pressed into the background. When survival is secured, the question resurfaces with force. And the institutions that previously answered it, religion, tradition, stable community, inherited identity, clear social roles, have, in much of the Western world, weakened significantly. Frankl called this the erosion of instinct and tradition. In an earlier era, human beings were told what to do by their instincts and what to believe by their traditions. Modern life dissolved both sources of direction. The result was an unprecedented degree of freedom, and an unprecedented degree of existential vertigo. The young people who come to therapists today reporting that they feel lost, that they have everything they were told would make them happy and yet feel nothing, that they scroll endlessly through content and feel only more empty, these are Frankl's patients. They are suffering from neogenic distress. And the treatment for neogenic distress is not pharmaceutical, not cognitive behavioral, and not algorithmic. It is the rediscovery, or the first discovery, of a genuine task, something specific that this person, with their specific capacities, is being asked to do or be or give to the world. Frankl was not optimistic in the sentimental sense. He did not promise that this rediscovery would be easy or that it was guaranteed. What he offered was a framework for searching, a set of questions that pointed in the right direction. What does this situation ask of me? What is unique about what I have to give? What task is genuinely in front of me, regardless of whether it is glamorous? He also argued that the meaning crisis is not only a personal problem to be solved individually. He called for what he called meaning education, the integration of existential questions into how societies prepare young people for life. Not vocational training only, not academic achievement only, but the cultivation of the capacity to ask, what does life mean? And to take the question seriously enough to spend a life on the answer. 80 years after his diagnosis, the patient he was describing is more recognizable than ever. Subscribe to the Psychology of Viktor Frankl to explore more of his timeless ideas.